Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. This is the Grumpy Old Guy, co-hosted again today by Space Ape Brad.
Hey guys.
Hey, just a quick update on the studio. I am broadcasting today over a new microphone, so hopefully the quality and sound levels are better. Still, still waiting to acquire and install lighting and camera, so that's still in the future. And this time of year, most of you guys know we get prom and graduation and things of that nature. So that's kind of delaying my purchases at this point in time. But I think most of you guys can understand that. So today we're going to deviate just a little bit from the last few weeks where we covered strictly headlines, but we are going to hit on a couple topics that are headline related, if you will. First of all, we at Grumpy Old Guy Productions, we are staunch, and I do mean staunch, 2A supporters. We totally believe in the right to bear arms. I personally never saw combat, but I did sign the dotted line willing to give my life for each and every one of you out there. And it never came to that, and I'm thankful, but at the same time, I'm not going to give up my rights to anybody. And we see a lot of stuff in the headlines today about gun control, especially in light of the last shooting we saw in Tennessee, which was kind of a twofold hot topic issue. But that being said, we're always open to debate, suggestions.
Absolutely.
But if you want to debate and talk the topics, the one thing I'm going to ask for and demand, at every level, from local to state and federal, if you're going to debate the topic, walk in there educated. If you're going to talk about guns and how dangerous they are, you need to understand how they function. How.
The full cause and effect.
Absolutely. And you got one that looks scary and one that's not looking scary, and they're both the same. They just have different furniture on them. One has plastic, scary-looking parts, and the other one just has a wooden stock, but it's the same mechanical parts. You can't walk into a debate saying we want to take the AR-15s out of our nation's hand. But you can buy a 223 as a semi-auto that looks like any other your grandfather's old Henry hunting rifle.
And if the debate boils down to, well, guns are bad because they kill, all the way across the board, there's one singularity that coexists between all these different guns. That one little detail is that human has to squeeze the trigger.
Well, that's right.
Has to actuate that trigger, whether it be bumping it onto something or someone squeezing that trigger. That action has to take place.
I would totally argue the point that it's not an issue with the tool that's being used, but this nation has a severe, and I do mean severe, mental issue, and the children in today's society are screaming for help left and right. And what is society doing? Society's turning their back on the kids, and instead of getting them the help they need and acknowledging that there is an issue, society is saying, okay, we accept it, and we're going to promote acceptance and inclusion of your disability, your mental issue. We're not going to address the issue, though. You want to be what do they call it, a fluffy? You want to be a kitty cat today? Well, you can be a kitty cat, and society's going to accept you as a kitty cat. And that's the other half of the debate. That come up with this past school shooting. A mental illness is behind it.
Well, we're forgetting that delusional thinking has been a mental illness issue for eons, but we're changing the terms of delusional thinking to essentially idea
We're having a
erased as delusional thinking and being coddled.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue worth talking about and debating. I mean, there is a problem. Absolutely, there's a problem. But going after one scary-looking tool is not the same as addressing a mental illness. And just so the folks know, if you're getting all your information from mainstream media, and or Google, which has politically leaning algorithms pointing you to what they want you to see. Um, Gender identification, just so you know, by definition, is a socio psychosocial construct. It is not biological. It is a social construct. And where does that come from? What does that mean? It means society has made it up, basically. Just want to throw that out there, just for debate and thinking. Let's use some critical thinking skills and think this thing over a little bit. And we're going to debate things, talk about things at any level in legislature, at least, especially on social media. Where you got all these social, what do you want to call them? They call them influencers now on social media.
Yeah.
At least be educated in what you're speaking about. I mean, it's the bottom line.
They're called influencers for that exact reason. Not necessarily to preach illegitimate facts, but that's a perk, so to speak, to that concept.
Right.
Not only can we push agenda via schooling and via television programming, media, we can also push agenda via influencers to influence thought in society. Whether that's good or bad, that's up for interpretation.
Well, it's just like I made a vow 2 days ago. I am not buying another Anheuser-Busch product as long as I live until they come out and publicly apologize.
I agree.
And it boils down to simple morals and principles. You got to stand for something or you fall for anything. That's kind of a famous line in an Aaron Tippin song, right? Mm-hmm. And it's true. The bottom line is, I'm not going to buy a product who pays and endorses somebody who makes a mockery of the female gender. And it's not because they claim to be transgender. It's because they make a flat out mockery of the gender.
Exactly. It'd be one thing in its own to identify as what you identify as and go about your daily life within your personal realm of existence.
Absolutely.
You don't have to flaunt and expose yourself to the world in a manner that, in all actuality, makes you look just like a generic ass. Just makes you an ass.
Well,
making a fool of yourself at points.
I agree with what a lot of people said. This guy's an actor. Bottom line, an actor.
Yeah.
I don't know a single woman that would dress up as a adolescent child, a girl, and run around skipping and praising and jumping into a bed like a couple of scenes I've seen, and act like a 7-year-old girl versus an adult, 28-year-old.
Yeah.
That's a mockery of the female gender. Food for thought.
Absolutely.
Why don't we try something new? Why don't we try some what-ifs?
That's it.
So let me throw one out at you. It's a big one. What if at presidential election, the person with the most votes gets to be the president, and the second highest votes gets to be the vice president, regardless of political affiliation?
I would say yes, but
and make it the same.
In that scenario,
make it the same with the Senate too. You can only have one senator in any political party. You can't have two.
I accept that. But whenever it comes to the presidency and vice presidency, wouldn't it be feasible to run your candidate as a vice president? No, not as, but in hopes of getting the vice presidency. All right, so regardless, one of the two candidates can win 100% chance. There's two ways to win it. Get it by election or get it by assassination.
Well, that thought crossed my mind too, but then again, it's going to be kind of hard to hide the assassination. And even at that, if there was, the next in line would have to be opposite. So if the president's Democrat, the vice president be Republican, force a Speaker of the House that would then be Democrat as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that
That
more
counters
like force more cooperation? And then on top of that, you add the fact you can no longer have any pork ears. You want to vote on a bill? Your bill is one item specific. Make the people work instead of spending 3 months doing the nation's work and 9 months of the year running around, you know, cohorting with their lobbyists.
Scale has become a problem. Scale is in like size. Reason why for I say that is because all right, so imagine how fucking manageable a town in modern history would be with less people.
Yes and no both, because I mean
Now
you're talking about workload too.
workload, but break it down to I mean that's part of the point I'm trying to get across is all right at that point why not just elect that village's leader be the leader of that village.
We already do that.
We do, but we also have that leader of that village being led by a leader of the big village being led by the leader of all the big villages together.
Well, that's exactly backwards to how we do it now. I mean, everything starts at the local level and goes up. It doesn't come down.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, I don't know how to get across what I'm trying.
Well, ultimately, the what if is intended to push the construct of forcing the government officials to do their job versus the 100% partisan, who's in power gets to choose what's going to happen.
All right, let's throw the what if of what if you're in that position but you make minimum wage. At that point, you would hold that position via your core values and beliefs as opposed to a financial gain.
As in changing the salaries of the people in those positions?
That would probably be the best means of going about that.
No, I think the better means would be to say, hey, you're getting paid this while you're working, and you're not going to get that as a lifelong benefit.
Well, yeah, I didn't take into consideration it's a lifelong fucking ordeal.
Right? Wouldn't we as a nation save more money and be better off?
10-year terms. 10-year
How many?
term max.
Well, we haven't even talked about term limits yet, but how many people get into a Senate position or a congressional seat and serve one term or less and get paid that the rest of their life?
Yeah.
Especially if you get in when you're 30 years old, you serve one term, so now you get out at 34, 36, 38 years old, whatever the term limit is, and you make that $150,000 a year the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You can sit on your butt and still get that money, and that's not even including the health care benefits and all that.
I'll take back what I said a second ago. If in fact they were working minimum wage, doing that job not for the financial benefit but for the moral construct of the greater good of the population, I'd be all for giving it. You do your term, you do a good job about your term. Guess what? Here, thanks. Go for it.
Hey, while we're at it,
$20 an hour for the rest of your life sitting on your ass after you did this. Cool. As long as it was led morally.
what about running the elections on a point system? And how about all contributions for campaigns going to one big general fund and it's split evenly amongst all the people running?
That wouldn't. Yeah, that would take away like the Soros funding Democrats concept.
Yeah, and the super PACs.
Yep.
And then let's say we award negative points or negative votes for every single ad that is run against your opponent that's negative.
Smear campaign. Yeah, eliminated.
I don't want to say cancel those. So let's rephrase that.
No.
Not cancel those, but penalize them. From their campaign contributions or whatever.
Exactly. what's wild to think about is if you recall this last election, I did personally I didn't see any single advertisement that was saying something good about the candidate the advertisement's for. All of the advertisement was negative against the other candidate. There's no progressive advertising towards their candidacy.
Positives, right? Yeah. So that's an interesting what if, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Makes you stop and think. What if baseball is played with a golf ball instead?
Yeah,
Huh?
that would make the sport rather tough.
Or what if NASCAR mandated every 10th lap you got to turn around and drive in the opposite direction? No.
I think you'd see a lot more collisions, especially come lap like fucking 30 or 40.
Throw a little bit of chaos into it, huh?
I'd say.
I mean, you can go on YouTube and there's what do they call them, bash races? It's kind of like a banger races. It's kind of like a cross between oval track racing and demolition derby.
Mm-hmm. Gnarly.
It's fun to watch. Yeah, I guess you could probably say, hey, let's dial down the speed on some of it, and that might take away from some of it, but maybe you could do it every third race or something.
There you go. Or have it a random event. All of a sudden, the fucking striped blue flag pops out, and everybody's got to flip around. Don't matter if you're on lap 6 or lap 12.
How about every time you pit, you have to change numbers and exchange cars with the opposing team member?
Business cards.
Now all of a sudden you're driving for a different team.
That's right. A little wild. And, yeah, so the team would essentially be the crew in the booth and the pit crew, and the driver's just the variable operating the team's
Yeah, and the goal is to have
means of winning.
Yeah, the goal is to have the car win, not the driver.
Exactly.
You know, that way the guys are trying to keep their car running and hoping for the good drivers.
Each other's cars up.
Maybe you can put it in a bucket, and every 25 laps you got to stop and pull a name out of a bucket to see what driver's going to get in what car.
There you go.
I mean, it's not NASCAR is a big sport. I don't want to make fun of it, but it's not my cup of tea. But I mean,
I get why people enjoy it, though.
I don't enjoy it because
live events.
Yeah, but for me, I don't enjoy it because it's one big left-hand turn. They have 2 races a year. That's more of a road race, but the rest are all just one big left-hand turn.
Yeah.
Let's shake it up a bit, make it a little bit more exciting. You got any what ifs?
Not necessarily off the top of my head at this very second. Shit fire.
What if we had 2 moons?
Oof.
No, nothing there.
That's a good one, but I don't know. I'm thinking on it too much. Oh, that would throw the gravity way out of whack or some shit.
Oh yeah. Floating. Especially if they were opposing moons, man. You'd have like high tide, low tide, not nonstop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any others? You got to have something in your mind.
Not a what if, but I just had this random fact popped in my head I learned earlier this week. Is that astronauts can't burp in space at 0 gravity without puking.
Really?
Yes, because in gravity holds the fluids. It allows the bubbles to rise.
So what you're saying is you need to do a field experiment by hanging upside down off a balcony and seeing if you can belch.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good way to do that.
So when you going to do this experiment?
I'm not too sure. I don't have any skookum balconies to hang off of to start with.
Well, you got to have a tree, right? Phoenix has trees somewhere.
We do. We do. We got to watch out for the fucking things in the trees trying to kill you.
Well, why don't you get with your buddy out there and see if you can arrange a field experiment?
I'm sure I could pay him to do it.
You could probably hang upside down from his rack in his trailer.
You're right.
All right.
Anybody play
So,
possum?
we'll look forward to hearing back on your field experiment. That's yeah.
I'll let you know.
God. It's gotta be, well, it's probably about the easiest way, huh?
Mm, that's counter gravity, yeah.
Let me see if I can pull up. I had a kind of an interesting thing I saw on Facebook here recently. In fact, it's just this morning.
My wife walks by me this morning and says, "You look like a mix of Albert Einstein and Mark Twain." That makes me think about what's going on around here. Albert Einstein said the world wouldn't be destroyed by evil men, but by those who sit back and do nothing about it. And then it makes me think what Mark Twain said, that it's easier to fool people than it is to convince them that they have been fooled. It's long past due that we all realize we've been fooled and fooled badly. And like Einstein said, we all need to start doing something about it now. Peace out. Have a blessed day.
All right, you got any more what ifs?
Damn it. Nope, do you?
You know what if the climate was the same worldwide? Everybody had this. Everybody had the same. I don't know, average of 65 degrees, 70 degrees. You know, with some highs up in the 80s, maybe 90s, and some lows down in the 50s or so. What would that look like?
That would look like.
Utopia?
Yeah, I mean, yes, but no, because then we would lose the relevance of hot and cold, of utopia versus desolate, arid wasteland.
Oh, well, what good's that arid desert wasteland serving us?
The opposite of paradise, so to speak. Can't have one without the other.
I don't know if that's necessarily true, but of course I'm not a geologist.
I'm not going to say nothing. Well, physically, all right. Physiologically, structures of the stone, yes, is totally different. But the mind's perception of, all right, same thing for happy and sad. Good, bad. So if we're talking about paradise, it's the perception of what is nice to one's eye in terms of the environment around you. Well, if that was all that existed, would you not then have something to compare that to, thus creating it the paradise of which you say it is?
So in simplest layman's terms, you're breaking it down to balance.
Essentially, you have to have one without the other one. Otherwise, you can't see that. Otherwise, you can't see its beauty without the ugly.
Man, I can't help but going back to your field experiment. You gonna have this
Puking upside down?
Yeah. Well, if that's what the outcome is.
I mean, we'll do it for science, but
is it going to be recorded? That's going to be the question.
Of course. Why wouldn't it? We're gonna puke on command for science, and it better be on recording.
Well, as long as you set up the premises and whatnot, you know.
Exactly. You gotta set it up right and put your plugs in your nose, and everything will be okay.
You know, I got your buddy's contact information. I'll follow through with it.
Hit him up. Tell him to come down there. I'm waiting for him to visit.
Yeah, he's gonna have to bring his trailer though, because he's got that glass rack in the back. So
I know it. It's a skookum little setup.
I think it's perfect.
We can hang all sorts of people upside down on that. We have a whole puke train going on.
So
At Scottsdale PD to shut down a road, we can do it while moving.
no, I don't know if it needs to go that far, but I'm thinking it would be a good scientific model to include more than one person. So
Absolutely.
you know, you get 2 or 3 hanging upside down from that and testing the theory.
That's right. eliminate some variables.
And how are you going to induce the belch? Is it going to be carbonated waters?
Oof, that's a good question because there's a couple different routes we could go about it. That would be the easiest means, but I would like to see Sebastian put a bike pump in his mouth to see how much air he could swallow. So that's yet to be determined.
Okay, so well, I don't know about that scientific experiment, but yeah, that's a thought. I'll have to YouTube that one to see if it's been done. So what's the premise? What's the premise on that one? How much air can the human stomach hold before a belch is inevitable?
Well, initially it derived from once again, I learned that fact earlier this week about astronauts. They can't belch under zero gravity because gravity holds the fluids down in your stomach. That being said, whenever you burp, it pushes the fluid out too, so you puke in it at once as you're belching. But to counter gravity here, we'll just flip ourselves upside down, so it's like the gravity's not at our feet anymore.
Yeah.
We're not going to break it down too much because it'll probably dissolve into something we can't do, but we're going to run with it.
We got to get a... All right, so you're on air committing to this. We got to get a time frame for this now.
I'll have to get in touch with Sebastian and see what kind of schedule he's got. We'll get something planned out. We'll have a date within the next couple of weeks.
You realize that most of the homes' roofs over in like England are still thatch roofs?
Did not realize that.
Yeah, they still use thatchers. They go out there and pull off the, I don't know what it is. What barley, wheat, I don't know what plants they use to do the roofs with, but can you imagine that being here? Imagine what
Honestly,
kind of industry?
Yeah. Well, look at what we did to the hemp industry before we decided to kick that out the door back in the fucking 1800s. They were making textiles, they were fucking making building materials, all sorts of stuff.
Oh yeah, and they actually a lot of the indigenous people use it as a natural barrier, like a fence. You could plant it and
Absolutely.
create fences and whatnot.
They're called trees for it. I mean, there's some sturdy stalks.
Well, it's just like the sugar industry been protected for 100 years now. The Rockefellers, I think, were instrumental in that, but and that seems to be one of the leading. Sugar is like one of the 5 most addictive substances on Earth.
Really?
And it seems to be the cause of a lot of medical issues. In particular, diabetes and whatnot. Insulin. I don't know, what is it called? Not insulin rejection, but yeah.
Not being able to make insulin because insulin dependent on the sugars you're getting from the outside source. That was natural means of producing sugar.
Even tobacco productions, on a small scale's declined.
Oh yeah.
The area where we live at used to be all tobacco fields, and now it's corn and soybean.
Yeah, that's wild. I remember much tobacco when I was young.
So what you're saying basically is we kill off the sugar industry, which changes the entire societal fast food makeup. Even places like they say they do it to enhance the flavor, but every fast food includes sugar in their. Look at Pizza Hut. They put sugar in the sauce. They're not doing it to enhance the flavor. They're doing it to make it more addictive.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line.
Well, you run into modernization was great and all, but it's also a double-edged sword. 'Cause let's say you canceled out all sugar crop. Okay, we live in a synthetic era. We don't need that sugar crop. Fuck that sugar crop. I'll make something else. And unfortunately, the things that tend to be made in the long run have shown to be more potentially harmful than the natural specimen of that genre, whatever it is. Be it foods or
Well, that's kind of
even
like
aspirin. Go chew on a willow leaf or fucking willow bark, and tell me you don't see the same the same effects, minus some of the side effects.
I've never researched it.
Mhm.
However, I do know that there's some validity behind it, just based on what reading I have done. So, like in the 70s and beyond, let's just start in the 60s probably, the widespread uses of plastics and microwaves, and putting our food in the plastic containers, plastic bags, blah, 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 putting them in a microwave. And then also with that, you saw increased inoculations for different, like today, just get your kid into school. They have all these requirements that you be vaccinated against all these different things, and some of them I can see as positives, but
Yeah.
still kind of controversial. And at the same time, you saw a drastic increase in mental disorders, birth defects. Also, along with this,
issues.
well, along with this, you also saw a lot of fast food coming into play versus how it used to be.
Very much so.
Instead of your mom and pop shop taking an actual hamburger and making their own patties, they're using processed foods, processed patties, and processed potatoes for French fries and all that. And then they wonder why we're seeing an uptick in issues with the human anatomy.
Absolutely. Let alone let me restart. Let alone the concept of the things we're putting into our body via food wise. Think about all the carcinogens and bullshit we're breathing on a daily basis. Just breathing.
You mean like vaping?
I mean, that too. That too. Essentially that too. Go to the Amazon, dead smack in the center of the forest, away from all industry, and tell me that the air doesn't taste different than in the center of California, center of LA. That type of concept.
Oh, but hold on now. California's been a very progressive state for at least 6-7 decades now. They got all kinds of rules and regulations, and
they're the perfect state.
But why would their air be so bad?
Oh, it's not. It's perfect. It's perfect in California. I don't know. We're delusional.
I guess. I'll take the Midwest air any day.
You and me both.
Midwest water, soil, you name it.
As long as they quit putting shit in it. Vinyl chloride, phosgene gas in the fucking air. Oh, the news outlets are coming out saying right now that I want to say the train line is being sued for putting bio or chemical weaponry in the air. Well, they should have known prior to everyone. I won't say everyone. It's not necessarily common knowledge.
What, from that train wreck?
Yeah. It's not common knowledge, but if you burn vinyl chloride, it's phosgene gas you're creating. Well, if you did some research, World War I, they were utilizing phosgene gas as their main chemical weapon.
I guess it just goes to show that technology is great until it turns south.
Very much so. And the issue is, I'm not going to sit here and say it was done intentionally. I think 100% it was just a fucking accident. Like, shit happens. Because if we look at the reality of the infrastructure in America right now, we don't have people operating railway lines like we did back in the early 1900s. We don't have the workforce. People don't want to fucking do those types of jobs anymore, which is super unfortunate because now you're seeing the wear and tear on the machinery.
Well, yeah, that's about the almighty dollar. Reduce your overhead so you can maintain the highest profits possible. I mean, that's why they killed the Keystone Pipeline. Let's be honest about it.
Exactly.
The cheapest way to transport raw oil is by pipeline. The most expensive way you can do it is the way they're doing it right now, via truck and train. And who owns those truck and trains? So most of the lines that go north-south from Alaska down to the refineries in Texas and Oklahoma and places like that, who owns those rail lines? It all goes back to just a few individuals.
Yeah, Union Pacific and Norfolk.
So, and who owns the truck lines?
Exactly.
The Koch brothers.
Yep.
You just throw it out there.
That's the reality of the matter.
So
and then that's the thing, is you're multiplying all this workload onto the structure, so to speak, but the maintenance on the structure that hasn't been kept up with 30 years at least, in terms of maintaining it to proper standards.
Well, that's why we talked about recently the hypocrisy behind all of it, because you got and let's just be honest about it. You got two primary political systems in the nation, Democrats and Republicans. I would argue that it's more conservative versus progressives than anything else.
Yeah.
And the progressives want to argue green energy and this and that, follow science and this and that, and yet they're funded and being backed by the most opposite of green you can get.
That's the reality of it. It's the whole concept of peek behind the curtain.
Never mind the man behind the curtain.
Exactly. You're seeing the display of which. We were having this great discussion last night, talking about all sorts of things. One of the things that jumbled out of my mouth was the concept of magic. You say magic to any Joe Blow out in the world, and they're going to think wizards, warlocks, and waving a wand and casting spells. The reality of the matter is magic is the programming we use called language, and utilizing language to program. Calling things that, without studying it and paying attention to it, goes over your head at a moment's notice with a fake veil around it.
It's more like a subtle form of mind control than magic, right?
Very much. Well, that is essentially what that is.
Mm-hmm.
It's the usage of. It's called spells for because you're spelling. You're utilizing words. You're putting words in a certain pattern, or letters in a certain pattern to create a vibration, essentially, to rewire a thinking process.
I think that's why mainstream media is so dangerous right now.
Absolutely. Pay attention to the verbiage used. Pay attention to just not necessarily the tone of the voice, but the way the voice carries the verbiage.
There's a lot to be said to that, because you can insert a comma here or there, or change the order in which the words are spoken and totally change the context.
Exactly, very much.
And that's why you see it so easy. Journalism, we talked about it a week or two ago, journalism is so dead. It's politically spun nonstop to highlight
Mainstream
the agenda.
Journalism. Yep, the mainstream journalism's super dead. I'm seeing a whole bunch of people popping up, especially on YouTube and whatnot. Just like your Ryan Hall. He's an underground weather guy. I'm seeing a bunch of underground journalists that are some of them are college kids just learning the art of journalism. Some of them are Joe Blows who got tired of the mainstream media have been working in their oil field life their whole 40 years, and are now exploring and giving you the pages that are being swept under the rug, the things that the media won't cover. Seeing a lot of new faces popping out saying, "Hey, pay attention to this."
Oh, yeah, that's crazy. There are a lot of. I'm not going to go so far as to say Walter Cronkite type people, but
No,
you know,
no.
back before your time, Walter Cronkite was well known for flat out saying it like it was, non-biased. You know, what I see, this is what it is.
Yep.
And I don't know if towards the end if he didn't start curtailing to one side or the other, because at that point in time in my life I wasn't really paying attention to him. Definitely a dead art giveaway to technology. All they do is a little Google research and just spit it out there, and now they got AI just creating the writing, and not
It's
very good at
wild,
that.
Not at the moment, but give it if they pump the brakes on it like they're talking about, they give it a rest, it's not going to be as quick, but regardless, the outcome is going to be the same.
Well, GPT-5's set to come out before too long, and it's supposed.
They already have animated TV shows.
Oh yeah.
With it's completely the art generated AI, the scripts AI, and if you look at it from a sober mind, obviously the shit doesn't make any sense. The picture's fucking, why is there a face with a half a brain morphing into a fucking tree? Okay, this doesn't make sense. But the overall concept of it, with how fast it's progressed to what it is, take that and look at what it's going to be. It's fucking bonkers. We're going to have full scripted TV shows that you're not going to be able to differentiate between, oh, that was produced by a crew of actors, or no, that was an algorithm that was spit out by a computer.
Well, still, some of that I think is going to be programmed to be politically agendized. How do you want to say it? Follow a political agenda.
Exactly. And everything's a tool. It's how you use that tool. Unfortunately, we live in a day and age where people are too busy looking at their phone and not paying attention to what they're doing with the tools.
Well, that's just it. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Getting your education from the mainstream media and Google. So, for example, I'll give you two examples. A while back, our President Biden made the comment that 9mm blows the lung out of the body. How many YouTube videos I've watched where people went and got the latest, greatest ballistic skeletons that are used by FBI, CIA for training and whatnot and research. And they've even went as far as to get, the closest we can do to human simulation would probably be pork.
Yeah.
And they fill these things full of 9mm lead of all different kinds of, defense rounds and whatnot. And they can't seem to blow the lung out of the body.
Yeah, man. I wonder why.
But yet that comment was made and run with, and then you got these talking heads like Whoopi Goldberg and Dianne Feinstein and Maxine Waters and these people.
What do you mean? Those are all righteous people.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about the sinfulness of an AR-15.
God damn it, they're preaching for good.
I mean, holy cow.
You just want love and peace.
How many different ways, just for an example, one of the most famous and most well-known 22 long rifles in the United States is the Ruger 1022. Mm-hmm. It's been used for everything from hunting to sporting and targets and you name it. And it's become so famous because of its reliability, but also the ability to customize them.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you can take a Ruger 1022 and just get it plain Jane, as cheap as they come, with just the metal and the wood furniture on it, the wooden stock.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can trick it out with all the goodies, and you got something that looks scary as hell, even though it's no different than that other one.
Exactly.
And which one do you think they're going after? They're going after the scary looking ones. It has no greater functionality than any other one. It has nothing to do with the verb assault. You know, just as last year they came out with assault pistol. It is not an assault pistol. There is no such thing as an assault pistol.
You throwing magic at you.
You can't put the verb on the beginning of it and make it a bad thing all of a sudden, right?
You're not supposed to, but that's how it works. Now, to counter that, well, never mind. How is that countered? How is that countered?
Let's look at this.
If they're using verbiage like that to create that mindset, how is that mindset countered?
Because Armorlight is so bad.
It is. It's too heavy, and the people wearing it look scary.
So yeah, I believe the bill was passed in 1939. I could be wrong, but fully automatic firearms in America is illegal unless you own a certain level of permit. That level of permit is very expensive. You have to undergo way more background checks, higher intensity background checks. You don't just get that permit and walk in, fill out the paperwork, and get it. That permit takes time, typically 3 to 6 months minimum. And it takes time because they're more extensively checking you out.
Yeah.
So I would contradict the wise President Biden. You can't just go out and buy a tank, or Whoopi Goldberg in particular said this. Well, yes, actually you can go out and buy a tank.
Yeah, you can. And I can call it Pablo and get any fucking gun I want.
You can't
RPG?
they say you can't just go out and buy a flamethrower. Bullshit. I got friends who have flamethrowers.
In fact, I'll make a fucking flamethrower.
Well, making one's
the rhetoric is pointless. The rhetoric is pointless.
The talking heads want to get on national platforms, televised platforms, and make statements that they pull out of their ass because they are uneducated in anything they speak about.
Exactly, and utilizing that.
And then they get
if they were smart, and they really wanted to do this right, they would come educated, and then use that in better informed manner for their fucking angle of attack.
Oh yeah,
utilize it.
And then they fill their studio with like-minded people who are just as uneducated. I don't care if they got PhDs or not. A PhD in liberal arts doesn't mean shit to me. Have you spent 80, 90, 100 hours on a firearm training range?
Exactly.
Then you can't tell me how it works, right?
That's like me walking into a jiu-jitsu gym, dojo, whatever, and walking up to the guy who owns it and saying, "Hey, fuck you, this is how we do it."
So, I mean...
Who am I? I don't know a damn lick. I know how to choke you out a little bit. But come to his perspective, the owner of the gym who's been teaching these people and whatnot, I'm in the wrong spot saying anything, coming in there ignorant as fuck.
Well, that's why I think if you're gonna be a talking head, you at least need to be educated in what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Otherwise, all your points are invalid. All you're doing is speaking on what? Feelings. And that's where there's part of where this nation is going to hell in a handbag is everything is being done on feelings these days. They're not voting intelligently. They're voting based off emotions and feelings. They're passing laws based off emotions and feelings. Societal construct is being based upon emotions and feelings. Well, guess what? We live in a world where there are winners and losers.
Yes.
You don't want to be a loser? Do something to better yourself. Make yourself a winner.
Unfortunately, especially over the past 20 years, but over the past 40 years, they've been pulling so much out of that. So much. How do I line this up right?
Well, and it was because of feelings that we started giving out participation trophies for becoming in 74th place. I mean,
well, why? We were talking about root cause analysis the other day, right? The concept of getting to the why, and the absolute reason of why that why exists, whatever the means is. That goes. Critical thinking has been eliminated from youth's grasp. It's been slowly pulled out of society. I say youth's grasp and young society because they're the ones being fucking taught. They're the next come up. They're the minds of tomorrow. And if you can teach those minds of tomorrow to think how you want them to think, instead of allowing them, teaching them to freely think and question things, then you're able to manipulate that future society, essentially, to bend at your will.
You like the creation of the Department of Education?
Very much so. I want a nation full of workers and not thinkers. That was quoted in 1903 by Rothschild.
And then you turn around, and what do? Oh, let's teach Common Core.
Exactly. Yep.
Let's teach everybody that all they have to do to succeed is pass a standardized test.
Yeah. We take those away, and now we're seeing the repercussions of that. We're seeing a society that doesn't rationally think. We're seeing a society that will not go cause and effect. They'll just go. There's no logical thinking that goes on now obviously there's a difference between hive mind and individual personal mind. I'm a strong believer that individually, human to human, the majority of these people on this planet are rather brilliant fucks. Don't matter who it is. Most of us are smart. But you get a group together and you get this collective hive mind, and then you feed it in obscurity. The mind automatically jumps towards any mysticism of any kind. The ooh and the ah. You throw that obscurity into a pond full of jumping fish, you're gonna stimulate chaos.
Well, that goes back to the old saying.
Chaos creates order.
Yeah, and that goes back to the old saying that you're only as strong as the weakest link, and when you're in a group, the weakest link might just be the leader.
That's exactly it. That's bonkers.
Yeah.
But that's what it boils down to, is the lack of critical thinking in today's society, and asking the questions why, and rationally sifting through day-to-day things. And it goes as far as personal thinking, not just hive mind. But the sifting through, people don't do it like that. As a child, I spent a lot of time, whether I needed to or not, sitting on my ass fucking just pondering things. Philosophy, just thinking about things. I still do it to this day. I'm on lunch break sitting in my container at work. I'm just sitting there thinking, looking around, look at the sky for a bit. I'm just pondering, just thinking, anything and everything. Something I've noticed, I don't see that. I don't see other people do that. Now, I know I'm off kilter a little bit. It is what it is. We all got a couple screws loose. But it's to an extent where maybe if there was more self-reflection, thought, and critical thinking going on into the whys and hows of what's going on globally, locally, the whole 9 yards, whether it's physical or metaphysical or something in your mind. I think if populations as a whole did more critical thinking, we wouldn't be treading on such thin ice we are today.
Oh, absolutely, and that just calls into play. Like right now, we as a nation, we're fighting nonstop, border to border, on the gun issue and the gender identity issue, while the rest of the world's trying to figure out different currencies to not undermine us in particular, but to get around. Yeah, to make things feasible for them, and basically eliminate the U.S. dollar as a world currency, as well, not the world currency, but everything's dollar backed.
Exactly. Here's a good thought experiment. put yourself in the position of, okay, I was born into communist China. From their perspective, what would the, obviously, fucking America's playing dumb, let's get them the fuck out of our way. Do I agree with it from this point of view as an American? No, fuck them. That's not cool. I don't agree with just going and fucking taking out a whole bunch of people because I disagree with their points of view. But at some point, we gotta step back and say, hold on. Are we paying attention, or are we just, again, mindlessly looking and scrolling? Are we watching these TikToks? Are we not paying attention to what's actually going on?
Well, and also, are you looking at it from a holistic viewpoint as opposed to an individualist viewpoint?
Very much so. Good point.
I mean, I get the fact that what's good for you might not be good for me. I get that.
Yeah.
But it seems like increasingly it's more of a what feels good versus,
What is good?
a small minority group is dictating to the rest of us based off of feelings and emotions what the rest of us should accept.
Exactly. That's not okay.
And whether we accept it or not is one thing, but there's also I should say, different levels of acceptance too.
Exactly.
Like
everything has to have a balance, a compromise too.
I don't care if somebody.
I'm all right.
Yeah, I don't care if somebody wants to be binary, or whether they want to identify this way or that. But you can't force your belief on me, and I don't have to respect your pretend.
I don't have to play your game. I don't have to know about your game.
You can do what you want. Don't get me wrong, but if you think you're going to force your beliefs on me, you got another thing coming, because I don't have to partake of your beliefs.
That's what makes freedom in itself the most beautiful thing on the planet. You might not like I smoke a joint once in a while. I might not like things someone else does. But having that freedom to dislike that and not be comfortable with that is a beautiful thing. Once we get into a society like North Korea, where you ain't got an option but to like Kim Jong-un, and if you dislike him, off with your head, that's where we let the bad win.
Mm-hmm.
We need to more props to Elon Musk. I love the guy. Good job for taking over Twitter. I see some wild shit now on Twitter. Not all of it do I agree with, not by far. But the beauty in being able to see both sides, total polar opposite sides of an issue, whether it be from a figurehead, a public speaker of any sort, or just a random another guy, next door neighbor, or whatever. Seeing a vast, again, polar opposites of different points of views. It's immensely more, I want to say, enlightening to an extent, because it allows you to ask more questions than you would have previously thought about just seeing it from one side.
Yeah, and I would have to agree. I think there has to be some kind of median in there too, where I'm a staunch supporter of a Constitution and our First Amendment and whatnot, but
Absolutely.
there has to be some kind of degree of control in terms of, let's say on Twitter, somebody says John killed Mary. Is that actual fact or not? Maybe somebody speculates it. They don't say I speculate.
That's where it boils down to the reader. I get exactly what you mean, and I have empathy for the point of view you're portraying. To counter it, That's where the reader has to, and you're going to agree with this. It's just like taking a piece of media information. News says 12 killed in New Zealand because of terroristic bombing. Like, okay, that's what the news says. So I'm going to look into this a little bit. It turns out maybe that wasn't the situation at all, and 12 people didn't even die after doing research.
Well, and that's just it. It goes back to, let's just take it down to simpler terms. Let's look at the basic law.
Yeah.
I'm pulled over by a cop. I can make a statement. This statement has two different consequences based on how I word it. I think you're an asshole. Or you are an asshole.
Ah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And it's a small technicality people wouldn't realize in just day-to-day verbiage, but
that's a difference in
means
protecting
two
your
different
First
things.
Amendment right and having that First Amendment right subjugated.
I agree.
So,
That's a good point.
and the same,
That's
I would state that the same should be true on social media.
Absolutely.
You
I
know,
agree with that.
if you're going to word it, word it. If you're going to say it. But how you say it, I would agree with certain aspects of some censorship based on the legalities of the wording.
Yeah.
But the flat out.
There's shit you shouldn't say, just as a general human being.
Oh, I agree.
There are things you shouldn't say, and I agree. Those things shouldn't be put on.
It's just like the statement, though, that John killed Mary.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to say it, it needs to be fact-based.
Exactly. It needs to say, "I think John killed Mary."
Not just. You don't just say it so that you can get people or try to persuade people to believe you.
That's the beauty and coding of language.
Right.
As fucked up as it is, and how twisted it's been used. Again, everything's got its polar opposite. We could use language in a much better way.
So another what if? What if we didn't have critical thinking? What if we didn't ask why?
That's a really good one, because that opens the door too. All right, so let's say.
So now you're an actor in a Pink Floyd video?
Which one?
Just another brick in the wall, brother.
That's right. Welcome to the machine. Oh my god.
Like the Borg, they're going to simulate us into the Borg?
But that opens the door again to, alright, so let's say those of whom, quote unquote, are in control of said machine, if they can't critically think, what brought them to the position of which they could control those of whom don't critically think?
I think that's already taken place, man. It's called mainstream media. It's already here.
It's already here, but in the same instance, unfortunately, it is already for us. There's another level of human beings that are thinking a little bit more critically than the masses are, that are pulling this shit off, making it work. So without that level of critical thinking, none of this fucking bullshit chaos would be as chaotic as it actually is today. There has to be a push for the agent.
Do you think maybe the people with all the money behind all the mainstream media, do you think maybe they had, access to all the military research and CIA and research, back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and that they might be manipulating the results of that research?
Oh, absolutely.
That we know they did research into subliminal messaging and mind control and.
It's called television programming for a literal reason.
Well, I think that term actually has a more standardized reasoning. But
Yes, but it also has a very literal reasoning. It is very literal and intensive of neuroplasticity, and your mind is what you absorb. Your mind is what you feed it.
Product of the environment.
That's exactly it. If you're feeding it nonstop. Let's look at ABC Family for a second. The concept Modern Family. That TV show aired right in the beginning of the late 2000s, early 2010s. Right as we're swinging into this whole LGBT acceptance. Well, coincidentally, it was also one of the first TV shows that featured the alphabet soup. I didn't watch a whole bunch of this shit. I don't watch TV very much. I see the scriptedness through it, and it's hard for me to follow television. But you feed that to 100 million people every Tuesday night at 4 o'clock for 10 years. And you notice how that 100 million people's views kind of shift. And it's not necessarily their personal views that are shifting, it's the way they're speaking of their personal views.
No, I think that
Views
falls
of
back.
others.
That falls back to parenthood, brother.
Very much so. Very much so.
How many parents today versus parents 30 years ago tell their kids to get the hell out of the house, turn that TV off?
It's polar opposites compared to what it used to be. Now you have parents handing their fucking 3-year-old child a tablet, letting them babysit themselves, letting the computer pay attention to the kid for them.
Well, to a certain extent, I'm not going to deny my youngest does. She does watch a lot of YouTube.
I'm just saying as a general.
But at the same time, this is the same 7-year-old we busted the other night, an hour past her bedtime, laying in bed, hiding with a light, reading a book.
Yep.
I mean, it wasn't a Dr. Seuss book either. I mean, certainly, I think parenting is probably the root cause of most of the issues. Reading is no longer a skill set that a lot of children really have. At least not reading beyond what do they call the little golden books and Dr. Seuss type books and things of that nature. And of course, then you got the culture that's trying to reword all the classics because they're so sensitive, so offending. Let's just erase our history. So sorry, Mr. Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens. So sorry that your famous works of Theodore Gissel. Oh, let's just call him Dr. Seuss, right? Let's just reword and eliminate some of those childhood classics because they're so offending. Let's remaster all the Disney classics to take Elmer Fudd's gun away. I mean, it seems to me that the generation that's doing the damage isn't the generation that grew up on these things. It's the children that are growing up on the TV the last 25, 30 years. And I can't even blame it all on Grand Theft Auto either.
No, not at all.
I mean, I'm sure some of that does play out, but
I would go as far to say less than 10% of it is influenced by things like games like Grand Theft Auto or shows like TV shows of the same type. I think less than 10%. But
am I hearing a commitment to do research?
No.
No.
Not on that one. But take into perspective this concept. 30 years ago, someone watched someone get their head chopped off. It was a fucking thing, and they remembered that for the rest of their life, and it fucked with them. Today, if I click on my Instagram right now, go to one of the more obscure pages that are on there, scroll 4 or 5 times, I could watch someone get hit by a train. I could watch a lion fucking eat a human. I can watch someone lose an arm. See all the tendons and the meat hanging? We've desensitized society to an extent that it's hard to differentiate from. Alright, so to a child, the world is new. If you're showing this new world, what is, they know nothing of what was. They only know what is. And if that what is things such as what I just described, a less sensitive world, very desensitized, then that's how their mind will think. Their mind will automatically be desensitized, thus making it hard to differentiate right from wrong.
Well, I for one think that videos and such like you described should fall under the same type of, I'm almost going to say protections from our,
rated R type thing.
well, even more so than that. They should fall under protections from our youth, much like pornography should be.
Oh, very much so. And I don't think our youth should at all be exposed to things like that.
I mean,
But-
I think it's important that they know, have an understanding that things like that happen. Don't get me wrong,
Yes, absolutely.
but
You
it's
shouldn't have it out there.
it's
I
kinda
just
like-
think it is.
kind of like the gun debate, right?
Mhm.
At what age should you start learning about gun safety?
I remember learning about guns when I was like 4 or 5,
And
6.
did you not grow profound respect for the tool, and
It was the first.
understand how to use it properly and what's right? And of course, you have to have an understanding of what's right and wrong. You know, what's legally accepted as right and wrong, what's morally accepted as right and wrong. But
The initial start of it all boiled down to every gun is loaded. Every gun is loaded.
yeah, and the bottom line is a gun can kill. It requires most of the time a person's intervention. I mean, there are some cases where somebody might drop or accidentally discharge, but of course that's, once again, it involves a person. But you learn from early age all about it.
The safety aspect.
The safety aspect, the proper usage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you were taught what the consequences could be for both you if you did something or somebody else that you did something to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The same thing should and could be said about any other topic in life.
Exactly. You taught us to be mindful of sheer negligence. Be mindful that sheer negligence exists so that you can keep it from becoming. That you can stop it before it starts.
I first started learning about gun safety and usage, proper usage of firearms whenever I was 5 or 6 years old. You know, I had my own 22 roughly at the age of 10 and had access to shotguns, pistols, hunting rifles. I went deer hunting with my dad many times before I could legally purchase a firearm. Yes, I went through the hunter safety course, and that was through the school at the time.
Same boat. I remember mine.
I think it should be instilled in every school.
Absolutely. I think if we're talking about core curriculum, I think gun safety should be part of that core curriculum. Firearm safety in general.
I agree. Just like it used to be, you know, when I went to school, you had hunter safety,
Yeah.
which taught you the safety aspects, right? You had driver's education, which was a class, a semester-long class. And you had sex education. That should be the parents protecting their children until they're starting to come of age.
Exactly.
It's just like I don't agree with these. There's a lawsuit in California. I don't know if it's been settled yet, but a parent was suing the school district because the counselor went behind the parent's back to help a 15-year-old girl transition because she's going through gender identity crisis. It's called gender dysphoria. It is a psychological issue in which 80 to 85% of all teens grow out of it, you know, by the time they mature. And we're talking about an immature female in this point. But she's suing the school district because the counselor was going behind her back and helping this girl to go through transitions with a local clinic and did not tell the parents she was doing so.
I think schools should take repercussions. I think that counselor needs to get fucking thrown in jail. And I also think the clinicians need repercussions as well.
Now, and I'll just throw it out there. For most legal purposes, you know, there are a few circumstances that are a little bit different, but put an age limit on it, 21. You're not allowed to do any of this shit until you're 21. For a simple fact that that's the age that, I don't know who really came up with it, I had to research it, but That's the age at which we decided you can buy your own booze.
Yeah, ain't that bonkers?
And even at that, 18 is pretty much the age at which you can buy tobacco, right?
Used to be.
Is it the day up that?
Yeah, it's 21 now.
So it's 21 now? So that seems to be the general consensus for an age point, 21. Legally speaking, you cannot enter into a financially binding contract, such as rent a house, such as rent a car, things of that nature, until you are 18 years of age. You can't go buy any firearms until you're 18 at a minimum, and that's for long guns. 21 for pistols.
Mm-hmm.
So why would we say it's okay for our kids to mutilate their bodies before they're even of age to understand the consequences and what it might mean?
Unfortunately, part of what we're seeing at play is we're seeing it.
And
As cliche as it sounds, it's the battle between good and evil.
And why would anybody think it's okay for the school district just to play along? It's like, oh, it's helping the kid. Well, no, it's not. Why would we accept that? It's unreal. And it's this person's 15. They can't even vote on the subject. It's their parents who get to vote on the subject. The parents ought to be pissed off. You want to be a extreme liberal state and progressive, the most progressive state in the nation, right ahead of New York. And it seems like to me the policies in place are, quite frankly, designed to destroy people's lives.
Very much so.
It's just my viewpoint. Obviously, it's a conservative viewpoint, but then again, this isn't an issue that's only in California. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not blind to the fact that it's causing mayhem, across the nation. And no wonder we're divided. People want us to be divided, and once again, it falls back to a feel-good emotion and not critical thinking.
That's exactly what it boils down to. There's a couple things that are there. Critical thinking and lack of self-awareness. Actual self-awareness. Now, people, you say self-awareness and people are thinking, oh, just aware of how I feel or aware of myself. No, it's the awareness of the impact on the environment around you of which you create. That's the awareness.
And that environment is not literal, right? It's the people. Yes. It's the people around you.
Yes, because not only are we forming this together, but you're also forming this individually. You're forming your perception of what is reality around you. You're forming it to an extent.
I would have to agree 100%. I'm not just going to declare that I want to be a fluffy penguin. I mean,
no.
Maybe that would be cool.
Our logical reasoning and analyzing of things breaks it down to it's impossible. It's impossible. It's not feasible. It doesn't make sense.
So in a nutshell, that's what we are trying to bring to light for other people to think about. Absolutely. Is the critical thinking aspect of it and the why.
Of everything. Yeah.
You keep asking the question why until you can't answer the question no more.
Exactly. I said this a while back, maybe a year or so ago, but I made mention of the concept of learning tools that we're given. I'm given a saw. Okay, it's one thing to be given that saw. It's another thing to be given that saw and taught why that saw exists, and then how that saw is used. Now, we're just using a saw as the fill-in-the-blank word. Any tool, whether it's a knowledge tool or a physical tool, whatever, you gotta ask the why it exists, how it exists, and how to utilize it.
Well, and on a more comical note, you brought it up, not me, but shiny unicorn. Why is it called a saw? What did it see?
That's a good point. What the fuck?
That ain't, is it the sound it makes? Because my saw doesn't make that sound.
That's a very good point.
Does it look like a C? A saw?
I'm really,
You
I
know,
got no other choice but to look up the etymology of saw. What is a saw?
I can generally, I guess, in the darkest corners of my mind, see where the name shovel comes from, because it, I guess, in some circumstances, could make the sound shovel. But what about hammer? It doesn't make the sound hammer. Who phrased the term hammering? Is it named after the verb, or did the noun come first? Oh, now he's in total disarray.
I'm hitting the Googler.
Oh yeah, in the old Google.
Yeah. Hammer. Origin. Old English humor. No. Old English. Hamor. Hamir. Of Germanic origin. Related to Dutch hammer. German hammer. And Old Norse hamar. Rock. The original sense was probably stone tool.
Yeah, but I could go out in my backyard right now and smack two rocks together, and that ain't the sound it makes.
No, it's not. Not by far.
So I'm guessing the verb came before the noun.
That's what I would say.
Hmm.
To hammer.
Things to
hammer
ponder.
To hammer would suggest that you have a noun in which you're going to verb.
Oh, now the critical thinking skills are setting in. Let's ponder the truly mystic ways of the universe here.
It's how what they wrote books about. That fucking them books are still around today. Socrates had some good ideas.
Well, let's just leave that as a closing thought. The power of critical thinking. We can use it to figure out how the name hammer came to be, whether it was a verb or a noun first.
That's right.
Right?
Chicken, egg, same thing.
And the lack of critical thinking in society.
Very much so.
We need to stop relying on the national, the mainstream media as a source of education, because it's not. And start, expanding our minds with something called reading and research and critical thinking.
And literally take 10, 15 minutes of your day.
And I'm
not as you're going to bed, but I mean in the middle of your day, take 10 or 15 minutes at some point. You just sit there and think about things.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about just reading news articles and whatnot, because that's kind of the same thing. I'm talking about reading peer-reviewed journal articles and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Papers that have actually been researched thoroughly and debunked or validated to their peers, academics.
Absolutely.
That's why I say things like gender dysphoria is a mental condition. It is still in the latest version of the DSM-5, which is a diagnostic manual, basically, for the psychological issues. It's not hard if you want to do the real research behind it, instead of paying attention to Oprah Winfrey and what's her name, Whoopi Goldberg and Joe Biden's of the world. I don't know if it's fair to throw Oprah in the mix. I haven't actually seen or heard anything she's had to say for years now.
Yeah, she's been kind of minding her own business, it seems.
Yeah, Goldberg is spouting out crap that doesn't deserve to be on a Z-rated television program, let alone a mainstream media program that's aired daily. And anybody that wants to say otherwise, please comment. I'll gladly bring you on, and we'll gladly have an open debate. And I would just say this: prepare yourself and be educated on what you're going to talk about.
Exactly. I will go as far as to say, though, as unfortunate as it is that it is currently occurring in this moment in society, I'm glad that we get to see those videos and see how obscure and wild and fucking outrageous in reality this can be. This thing we call life can be. So I think it's keeping a lot of us on our toes. Not as many of us, but a lot of us on our toes and more mindful and aware of what's potentially to come, essentially.
Well, that's just it,
saying that we wouldn't be as aware.
people who thinks in terms of the bigger picture, people who think in terms of the future, whether it be on an individual basis or a group,
Mm.
to me, versus people who tend to live their life day by day just to be alive.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are actually thinking things over and see the disgust in what our nation's become. There are a lot bigger and better fish that we could be frying than fighting over somebody who claims to be a red-tailed hawk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What happened to the days where we sat down and drank a glass of water and said, fuck, thank you, God, this water is amazing. Let's just pause and reflect on reality for a second and be thankful for what is real.
Yeah, I actually do that on a very regular basis, but
I tried to.
it's just me.
Water's great. I love it. I get it.
Well, it depends
I
on
say
where.
thank you,
Yeah,
universe, all the time.
it depends on where you get it from, right?
Very true, but the concept.
I'd gladly go out in the middle of the woods and stick my face down into a running creek and drink water any day of the week. I think with that we'll wrap it up and call it a close. And I think there's ample reason to prove why I'm a grumpy old guy, huh?
Oh, you and me both.
Yeah, I'm very, very proud of my nation, and I'm not very, very proud of what it's becoming, let's put it that way. So with that, I think I'll just play an exit, and we'll get out of here for the evening. Catch you guys next week.
Later, guys.